Hey everybody, welcome back. Stephen here, Northwest Small Batch Brewing. It is time for a brew talk. So this is a home brewing topic. I want to talk a little bit about keg line length. It comes up a lot. People actually ask this quite often, like how long did my keg line need to be? When we're saying keg line, we're specifically talking about the beer line that goes from the keg to your tap. The reason it matters is because if the beer line is too short, too long, whatever, you're going to get a lot of foaming and it's not going to pour well. There is an optimal length of tubing that you want if you're kegging your beer. Now, I would say normally if you're buying something pre-made like a kegerator, it's already pretty much done for you, like it's calculated for you. They assume that you're putting a corny keg in a kegerator, and so they've kind of already done the math for you. If you're doing like, you know, your own keys or whatever, and you have to do the math, here's the deal. There's two things you have to think about when you're talking about beer lines and how long or short they should be. First of all is elevation change. That is the distance between the top of your keg where it connects to the liquid all the way up to the top of the tap where it dispenses. That's your elevation change, right? Because you need some amount of pressure to push the beer up that distance. Secondly, the type of beer line you're using makes a difference. They come in different kinds of sizes, different kinds of material, right? For example, you could get a vinyl line that's like 3/16 of an inch, right? Or you could get a 1/4 inch vinyl. And on and on. There's other materials, other sizes. So you first have to figure out what kind of tubing you are using, the type, material, and size. And then if you go online, you can find out what it's rated for. For example, 3/16 inch is rated for 3 psi per foot, right? 1/4 inch, I think, is rated to less than that, like 0.85 psi per foot. Anyway, you'll need to look that up if it didn't come with your tubing to see what that is. So, how much pressure does it take to move beer normally, like through the system? Not much. 1 psi. That's all you need. And that's why if you're like me and you're ever filling a beer can or a bottle that you're going to bottle and you're just filling it from the tap, always lower your psi to like 1 psi, 2 psi, and purge the keg. That will help you not get so much foam and stuff because it's just going to come out without hardly just enough pressure to push the beer out. All right, so here's the math. I'm going to throw this up on the screen because it's a bit of math, but here it is. First of all, to figure out the length that you need, you take your keg pressure, all right? Now, most people like me and others, your standard keg pressure that you have your beer under to keep it carbonated and push it out is around 12 psi. You might be a little less or more, you know, it's not like an exact science, but let's just call it 12. Subtract 1 from that. That 1 is the 1 psi that I was talking about to push the beer through the line. All right, so now we're down to 11, right? That number is 11. And then we're going to subtract the height divided by 2, which is the resistance. Yeah, this gets confusing, like I said. So I'm just going to throw some numbers up here and say, you know, I've got, you have the 12 psi minus 1, so that's 11. And then if you take your height divided by 2, I'm just going to make up a number here and say, let's say we're going 3 feet high, right? From the keg, top of the corny keg up to the tap, 3 feet. Divide that by 2, get 1.5, right? So 11 minus 1.5 is 9.5. Take that number and divide it by your resistance. The resistance is, as I was telling you, that you have to look up online what the actual beer line you're using is rated for. Let's say we're using that 3/16 inch vinyl. That's rated at 3 psi. So you divide this all by 3 because that's what it's rated at. And you get somewhere like 3.1666666, right? Okay, so we'll just call it 3, right? We'll round it down to 3. So that means you need about 3 feet of tubing based on the elevation that you're going and the length, right? Or the type of tubing, right, that you're using. Those are the two things that you need to know in order to figure out how much tubing you need. That's all like numbers I threw in there, but you'd obviously have to measure for yourself for your own system to figure out what would work with you. At any rate, kept it short, but this question comes up a lot, and I thought it would be handy to put a little video up with the math equation on how to figure that out. I will be back in another week for another video. It'll either be a brew talk, or maybe I'll have a homebrew, like a full video of brew day. Might be a hot tip Thursday. It might be a whiskey tasting. You never know. At any rate, I'll see you next week. And until then, keep on brewing.